All right. So I want to discuss something I talked about on some of my earlier videos when I started doing videos early on, and one of the things was opting out. Now, I'm not talking about committing suicide or any of that other stuff. I'm talking about opting out in that something I talk about a lot on is the insanity which is pervasive within societies. And the reason I say insanity is because we often accept societal measures which are often baseless, such as, accepting money as a form of compensation, and thereby giving ownership and working for that money, while at the same time many policies that are put out are geared to advantage those who can rig or fix it in their favor. And one of the reasons is because society at large accepts this basis. And some of the things that I've been talking about lately is that what real work should be is one of mind and body, which balances out the emotion, which is and put those three together, and you have spirit. So when I talk about spirituality, I'm talking about the combination of all three and the balance. And so my whole thing is that something I've been thinking about for quite some time is opting out from this insane system, where money becomes a pervasive and destructive force, as well as restricting us. That many of us are finding out that those who control the money and those who use the money to get political positions basically have rule over us, because society at large accepts this. And this is a behavior that, in all rational thought, we should be saying, it makes no sense. I mean, how many times have we seen where, how do you pay for it, and yet they continue to allocate ridiculous, insane amounts to those who least need it? How many times have we seen where they take the efforts of those who are supposed to be, not supposed to be, they are the backbone of every country, they are the foundation, and yet how many times we see where they call it hypocrisy and all that? It's not hypocrisy, it's criminal. I don't see the value of sending out fellow members of the society to go make money by causing death and destruction, being turned into murderers, and that plays havoc on the spirit, and puts mental anguish and causes physical manifestations. It's a disease, and it's a disease that we can choose not to allow. But it's hard to do so when you have a society that coalesces around an ideology which basically puts us behind the 8 ball. It's a shackling and a bondage that we accept, which is why we have, when I talk to people in real life, and I talk about these issues, they're like, well, that's just the way it is. Well, that's, to me, is the most disheartening and depressing thing to hear, is that that's just the way it is. That's not an answer. It's an acceptance of being enslaved into a position that is disharmonious and causes us all universally to buy into the lie and this fake illusion, this fantasy, and we use the word life, but it's not life, it's existence. So when I talk about opting out, I'm talking about, there was a video I made. It's something I've been working on within my mind of since I was in my early to mid-teens, and it's a system that I've refined. I've come up with the infrastructure. I've come up with the physical infrastructure and all that other stuff, and it also addresses one of my aspirations, and that is to build a advanced society that will have starships and so on and so forth, and not relying on basically but that's my personal, and I've invested within the physical as well as social and political and socio-economic systems, how to advance us forward. And so I've taken into consideration many of these. I've changed a lot of it over the years, because I've seen the weaknesses which would only foster just another enslavement and bondage, self-bondage to basically propping up a few at the expense of the many. And I've talked about this in my videos before, about how automation and a surveillance that basically forces us to be honest, basically keeps us informed, that basically allows for justice in a natural framing. and so on and so forth. I talked about that and how we can use automation to allow the many to do the real work from birth to death of learning, educating ourselves, finding ways to be introspective and creative and imaginative, so that we can think critically, we can see things critically, we can base it on reality and not exploitation, because that's what it comes down to, is that the system we live in, the system we accept, is exploitation. We subjugate ourselves to exploitation by the few. And I'm talking about opting out of that system. I'm talking about building a total structure system that will allow us to do that. That will provide everything from basic, from the basic to beyond. That will make it so that that we know truth when we see it, when we hear it, when we learn about it, and there won't be and those who make the mistake of trying to BS and turn self-serving and are motivated by self-serving motives, who are trying to infuse insanity into the society. The evidence will be there on demand, and there will be no social hierarchy within the system. Everybody gets equally. Nobody has to pay rents or costs for heating and air conditioning and housing and so on and so forth. So I'm very much into technology, but I'm also but my technological drive, my innovation is for reasoned and rational technology that doesn't come back to cause us harm in general. It is my intention, and something I've considered of trying to do. So I'm curious as to how many people understand what I'm getting at, and want the same thing. Are we willing to come together and do something radical? Because to break away from the bondage we have been forced, many of us, especially the young, have been forced, were never given a chance, a choice. So I'm curious, are there people out there who think or accept my premise and are willing to opt out and look for a new way, a more reality-based, truth-based system that will give us, that will start to take us down the road of real freedom. It doesn't put social inequities in our path because of irrational and simply self-destructive thinking. So That's the question. Are there people out there who would like to opt out, who would like to take on the challenge of building something that that will take us on a pathway forward in progress. So understand, I'm not asking this just frivolously. As I said, I have the basis. It doesn't mean that it's that there can't be any there can't be anything that can't be modified, because there may be some things that give us that I may have not thought of or considered. But basically, if you're interested, the premise is basically simple. I have a design for how to build these gigantic floating platforms, which are self-propelled, which individually have the basics for the infrastructure, for the physical infrastructure. They're built, and then they're sent out to a particular location out in the ocean, and and new ones go out there, and they're produced and manufactured so that they tie in together, and expand it, and on there we'll have planted trees and other stuff, and we'll have lakes. We'll have the infrastructure for electricity, for powering our electrical systems. We'll have basically everything in there, as well as manufacturing centers to manufacture the needs, which will basically be allocated to everybody, and we won't need too many people who will have to do deliveries and so on and so forth, because the entire physical structure is made so that once what is produced gets sent automatically. You sit at a terminal in your residence, and you basically say, okay, this is what I want. It gets sent after it's produced, and the production is based solely on you making a request for it, and it's produced. For more essential stuff like like we're having with the COVID crisis, where essential stuff like the machines that respirators and PPEs. Well, those it's factored in to make sure that those are warehoused, produced in significant amounts, and they're warehoused. And the way I've designed it is that it'll be warehoused in a temperature controlled near vacuum, so that air and other stuff won't get at it, so they'll be preserved far longer, with forward thinking. So this also goes for food and and other essentials. So, as well as seeds and medicines and so on and so forth. So, but my plan requires that people that have training in engineering, in physics, in basically all the sciences, in medicine, those who are skilled with their hands or in trade are required. Those who have imagination, like I don't have formal education beyond high school. I barely passed graduating, and so from high school. But I do have imagination. I do have interest and curiosity, and this is how I come up with what I do, because I pay attention to a lot of stuff. So it'll require people like me. It'll require people who have formal education, but aren't nailed down and can think and consider things they've heard. And people, and basically, even for the doctors and other stuff, like, what we'll end up doing is there'll be as much automation of everything, and those who have specialized skills won't get specialized status or so on and so forth. What they'll do is they'll get consideration for for their efforts, because they will become essential. And what ends up happening is they'll get access to a little bit more. They'll also get access to sites and places that will be built in, and they'll get priority so that they can have the downtime, so that they can have the release of stress and pressure, and so on and so forth. They won't become a special exception in society. Same thing with engineers and so on and so forth. You'll do some of the stuff, but basically everything will be made for automation, and basically you'll spend most of your time thinking of ways to make your education and skills better. How to look abroad and integrate from other places and other things that will enhance. And this goes for everybody. And so. And also, as I said, obviously, if people living there want to go take a vacation, engineers, doctors, and that sort of stuff, they'll get a little bit more, because whatever we produce will be sold outside. Everything that we produce will be given freely, but whatever is sold outside will basically everybody will get equal, except for a few that will get a little bit more, so that they can. So when they want to take a vacation, they might be able to, you know, go and stay at a slightly more better place. But that would be only just a small perk, but shouldn't place any favoritism or value, excessive value on that. So that's what it comes down to, and so I didn't cover everything that involves my plan, but I'm curious as to see how many would consider doing such a thing. Comment and comment and give me an idea of how many would be interested in doing something like that. All right, thanks.